It was a normal day. I got in my car from Walmart, I think. I was coming out of Walmart, and the truth was is I sat down in my car and I started to drive, and I didn't even make it out of the parking lot, and I had to stop. I pulled over into one of the stalls and just absolutely broke down crying and sobbing in my car. We're going to talk about it in today's podcast.
Hi, my name is Michael Johnson. I'm a ballroom dance professional, a life coach, and a peak performance expert. I'm part of a group of motivated people who are dedicated to attaining emotional mastery and unlocking our full potential. We've realized life is a dance. The ups and downs can spin you out of your mind, but it's time to take back control. It's time to become a lifer. We don't believe others are responsible for how we feel. In fact, we don't believe anyone can make us feel anything. We are a new breed of overachievers. Emotional mastery is our journey, and unlocking our full potential is the key. Welcome to the journey. We are lifers, and this is Magic for Life.
What's up, lifers? Michael Johnson here with the Magic for Life podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'm excited that you're in and working hard on improving your life and being the lifer that you know you have inside, creating your life and working on being the creator of your world. And I'm so excited that you joined me here today. I've got something really special for you. As we talked about in the intro, we've all had these moments, these times where all of a sudden, for no explainable reason, we just lose it. We lose it. Our emotions get the best of us, and we break down. We start crying. We get super anxious. People call it having an anxiety attack, or there's all sorts of different names for these different things. Or all of a sudden, you just get frustrated or angry or upset, and you look at what was happening around you, and there is no explainable reason. In fact, as you try to analyze and use maybe some bit of logic or some sort of something that you might have available to you as a tool, you look at it and you go, there's nothing that should have caused that. And maybe it starts to carry with you, and somebody else oversees it or overhears it or notices, and they go, what's wrong? Can I help you? And they want to step in, and you say, I don't know what's wrong. I have no idea what came over me or why this is happening. And we tend to look to our outside world and we go, it's everybody else's fault. It's this fault. It's that fault. And we start searching our mind because survival has it for us that we need to find out what it is that is causing that. And the challenge that we have is simple. We really just have to be able to say, okay, where did that come from, right? So we start searching back. We go back to our old memories, and we go back to, oh, did something happen in Walmart that made me feel this way? But what we're going to talk about today is something that actually is a cause. It's a root cause of some of these things. And sometimes you have to identify what that cause is or what it's coming from in order to be able to have a better chance of interrupting the pattern. And we're going to talk about that today. So the thing I want to talk to you about is I call them anchors. And from my extensive training in NLP, that's a common term we use in NLP all the time, anchors. And an anchor is simple. It's just like a boat. If you were out on a boat and you were just floating there in the ocean and you didn't set an anchor, you wouldn't stay still. The boat would drift off somewhere. It could go anywhere, really, into the rocks, into the sand, out further in the ocean. But the waves and the current would essentially start moving you around wherever it needed to move you, right? Based off of the ocean. And it's quite simple. You drop an anchor, right? The chain with a heavy anchor on the bottom of it. It hits the ground and it anchors you into place. It keeps you right there. Now, I want to go a step further because essentially that kind of describes what we're talking about. Sometimes we have emotional anchors that keep us in one spot or allow us to remember or feel or access an emotion. Now, anchors and that boat analogy is great, but it doesn't quite describe everything. And in today's modern world, most of us are capable of using computers. All of our phones are smartphones. I think it's been years since people have used flip phones. Maybe they still exist here or there. But essentially, I want to talk to you about how we use our computing, right? Because computers are made in the likeness of us, of humans. And they might be faster and stronger, and they're getting faster and stronger, but they're still not quite as good as us as humans. That's another conversation. But what I want to talk about is the programs that we use. So if you talk about a computer, it's a piece of hardware. You have the hardware that runs the computer, the CPU, and there's all sorts of guts inside that computer that run that computer. You have your computer screen, and the computer screen is what makes things visible. You have your speakers, those things make things audible. You can hear them. And you have your camera that will record, like you're seeing me right now, and it will record you and give you sight, right? It gives you the vision. So we've got your vision, you've got your hearing, right? And you've got like a mouse. The mouse will move things around. It's kind of like your eyeballs can look, and kind of your brain can search around and access things within your brain. And so we are made, our computers are kind of made in the likeness of us, right? But the software is a lot more about what's going on in your mind and what's going on in your soul. And that software, we train it to do things. When you were a baby, you didn't have a lot of cognition yet, and thank goodness. And your memory wasn't developed, thank goodness, because you don't want to remember a lot of that stuff. And so as you start to develop, you are creating programs. Now, what happens? You create programs just out of necessity and survival mode. You create programs, and these are software programs that are running within your mind. You create programs that your parents create for you, and they teach you. And as you interact with your surroundings more and more, the surroundings help you develop your software programs to be able to run faster. And in order to survive, we have to be able to create programs that will help us stay alive. And so oftentimes we create survival systems essentially from the inside out. And those survival systems are those anchors that I talked about in the beginning. And these anchors are quite simple, right? They're something that will run the program. So if we go back to that computer analogy, you can double click on an icon. Let's say your browser, I use Chrome, some of you use Safari or Firefox or whatever you're using, and you double click and the program opens up. And if it doesn't open fast enough, we're like, oh my gosh, my computer is not running well. And so you start looking at cleaning the computer up or getting some sort of software to clean it. And we want our computers to run fast, right? When it comes to our minds, we forget that sometimes we've got to go in and clean those up, and we've got to work on updates for our software programs. In fact, many of you that have your computers know that Apple and PC are constantly updating their programs, their software programs. Windows 10 just got a new update. Everybody's freaking out about it. Safari or your iOS for your phone, for your Apple phone or your Android phone, they get updated constantly. And sometimes those updates go poorly, right? Apple had one recently that went not so great, and everybody was like, I'm not going to download it. I'm going to wait until they figure it out, right? Android has had their fair share. Every computer system can come with bugs. And so can our systems. So can our software systems. In fact, we do it all the time. We insert something that is helping us to survive and to understand how to move forward, but it comes with bugs sometimes. And sometimes we have to uninstall it and then reinstall it again. And you have all had that experience. You've had that experience where it's like, this app isn't working. So I'll try this, I'll try that, I'll try to adjust this, I'll try the setting. We Google it. The Google says to do this, make a adjustment here, make an adjustment there. And then when that finally doesn't work, the last thing that you do is you go, well, fine, I'll uninstall it and reinstall it again. And hopefully that works. And many times it does. And in so many instances, these things we have become accustomed to. We've become sort of immune to it. It's like, oh yeah, our computer needs an update. Our software needs an update. But once you've gone through all of the things that you can do with your software to upgrade it or improve it or get rid of the bugs, sometimes then it still doesn't work. And the next thing you usually go to is, okay, we got to check the hardware. One of my best friends from college, he used to always tell me, probably the simplest thing that's wrong is probably wrong, and you will probably do all of the hardest possible things first before you go and do the simple thing. And it's kind of true. It's how many times have we had that experience where a computer won't turn on or computer won't turn on, and then you realize it's not plugged in. It's crazy. It's crazy. And so you've got to understand there's a lot of different ways to go about improving the body, improving the mind. And the body is our hardware. Our mind is the software. And our soul brings it all together and gives us sort of another level of existence, right? Is that we have another element to us. It's not just the hardware and the software, but it's the combination of the two that give us something that's more passionate and more life to us than other beings in the world, right? We have this soul that we're working to fulfill and get something better out of. And so what I want to talk to you about a little bit is that experience that I had. And this was years ago, okay? And I was, like I said, I had to have been coming out of Walmart, or it could have been any store really. I don't remember the store because the experience was overwhelming. And I sat in my car and I turned on the car and I started to drive out of the parking lot. I don't even think I made it out of the parking lot into the side streets. And I just felt this overwhelming sadness. And I remember I just didn't have any control. Like I all of a sudden started bawling, started crying. In fact, thinking about it now gets me a little like, like I can remember that experience so clearly. And looking back and trying to analyze what it was that happened, I realized that the radio was on in the car and a song came on. I'm not going to tell you which one, so not happening. But a song came on and I didn't think twice about it. But as that song came on, it flooded me with emotion. And it was so quick and so fast that I just didn't have a chance to interrupt or get in the way. And I just broke down and started crying. And looking back at it, I realized what it was. This song was playing once. In fact, it had been the CD, I know, way back in the day, and it had been the CD of a greatest hits album. And I had it in my car, and it was one of my favorite groups. And it was a band, and they play all these songs, right, that I loved. And it was their greatest hits album, so it was all their best ones. And I remember I used to listen to this CD all the time, but specifically during a really rough time with a girl that I was in love with in college, and I thought she was the one. And you may have had this experience, and I remember all of it so clearly. I remember that moment when we split up, and it was final, right? And I was walking out of her apartment and got in my car, and of course this CD was in because that was what was playing at the time. So I knew all the words, I could sing the song. It was already sort of conditioned into me because I'd been listening to it a ton. And of course, I remember it came on, and they're sad breakup type songs, right? They're like, what was I thinking? And I turned it up and played it louder, and I sang with these songs and felt all of that emotion and the sadness of this experience of losing this love of my life who I thought was the one. And I remember crying all the way home and just bawling, right? Because this was important to me at the time, and singing all those songs. And as I played each song, I turned it up and played it louder, and they were all sad songs, so I just was making it worse. It was like cutting your finger with a paper cut and then getting out the lemon juice on purpose and starting to pour some on it, doing it over and over again. But I did it anyway. We are crazy sometimes. Why do we do that? Who knows? We do it because we want to feel, we want to get in and really experience that emotion, right? And that's a whole other conversation altogether. So we'll talk about that some other time. But I'm going to use my screen. So take a look. I drew this up beforehand, and we're going to use this little thing. So what's happening? I got in my car, and it's pretty simple, right? I got in my car, and the music came on, and I started to hear this song, and all of a sudden, my brain went, "What the heck is happening? Something's going on," and all the question marks go on, and your body just clicks right into that program right here. It's just like that software program, and it clicks right into that software program, and all of a sudden, all of the things that happen behind the scenes, just like when you open your browser, and just like when you open a window or a program on your computer, all of those things to make that program happen ran, and they ran instantly. And what did they say? Well, they said the last time you heard this song and the last time you played this song, this is what you did. And so it was an anchor. It was a program that I ran. And all of a sudden, here I was. There was this big, huge wall. And in order to get past it, I'm going to have to do something specific. And I'm going to tell you about that now. So if you're not watching on YouTube, go watch on YouTube because you'll be able to see this, right? And you can listen to me, and you'll get a lot out of it too. But if you haven't gone to our YouTube channel, Magic for Life, Michael A. Johnson, Magic for Life, and you'll see, go subscribe, and you'll be able to see what I'm talking about here. It's just simple little graphic, but it makes a huge difference to be able to see. So I'm running this program. I'm falling to pieces, and what could I have done? Well, over the years, you hear this idea that time will heal. Time heals everything, right? Well, what does time do? Time allows us to build up these walls that go, okay, I'm not going to do that. But also, we stop listening to that CD. I stopped listening to that music. But in the background, that program was installed. And sometimes you guys have had this experience. You install a program, you use it for a little bit, and then it just disappears and you don't know where it goes. It's in your computer somewhere. And then accidentally it just starts running, right? Or you go, "Oh, I have that program." You turn it on and you can run it anytime you'd like. Well, the same thing happens with us. We build up these walls, and the walls are of time sometimes and of different scenarios. And quite simply, the more you build up that wall, the less you remember about that old program. You forget that it exists. But what I'm going to tell you about is sometimes when one of these things come up, we go, "Oh, we can't have that happen. What if that happened? What if I wasn't in my car? What if I was in speaking to people, and all of a sudden that song came on and it just destroyed me?" Right? That would be bad. So I've got to be able to break that anchor, interrupt that program. And so what we've got to do is we've got to go over that wall or knock that wall down and be able to do that. Now, there's not lots of ways to get rid of that wall, but there's other ways to get over the wall too, right? Because the wall of time was there for us for a reason, right? Time heals. That is true. And if you have already gone through that, well, the only thing we don't want is to end up in this situation, back in the car, hearing this again, and that program running without our control, without our management in it, right? And that's the thing. There's so many times when we have to take on that skill that dancers take on, right? Dancers in all forms, they all work on impractical application, right? They work on improving their body so that when they command it to do something, it'll listen. Then they work on the semi-practical application. Then they take that semi-practical application and they do it, and they get the knowledge, they get the information, they learn what to do, how to do it, and then they go into the practical application and rehearse it and rehearse it and rehearse it. And that's what I was doing with that program or with that song. And I was rehearsing how to be distraught and sad and emotionally destroyed. My love of my life was gone, right? So I learned how to do that, and I practiced it really well, maybe in a much darker situation, but I did practice it, and I did do that well. And you guys have probably had an experience just like this. And so you get into that and you go, okay, well, we can either have the wall of time get there and help block that, but it's still going to show up again. So we've got to get over that. And maybe you see here, I drew my best little version of a Rubik's Cube. My son really loves Rubik's Cubes right now. So you scramble it up, and there's something like 4 trillion, 4 billion or 4 trillion, I can't remember the exact number, solutions, possible solutions to a Rubik's Cube. And I think we're much like that. We're much, much more like a Rubik's Cube than you realize. There's one solution. Well, there's 4 trillion solutions and that many problems, that many ways to mix up the Rubik's Cube and constantly go in and try to reorganize it and get it so that all the colors are in the right place and everything's organized. And so right here, we're going to actually use that to our advantage. So when something like that happens, we might take that situation, that song, and we might need to scramble it up. There's lots of ways to do that, but we need to scramble it up and we need to interrupt that pattern. And once we can scramble it up, interrupt that pattern, insert some new ideas, something that we love. And that was it. I just used some hearts, right? Something that we want to replace it with. So we're going to scramble that pattern, and then we're going to figure out what we want to replace it with instead. What is more valuable? What will help us in the situation? Because I'm telling you what we don't want to do is we don't want to delete this. This was an experience that you need, that I needed, to help me become who I am and what I stand for and what I believe in and what my soul needed to go through. See, I believe it happened for a reason. Maybe it wasn't pleasant, but it did happen for a reason. I needed it. And so I don't want to erase it, but I do want to find a better pattern to run because I really did love that CD. It was great music. And today I figured it out and I've done and taken steps to scramble that up again and be able to then go back and enjoy that music without it destroying me emotionally, because I found control and management of that situation. So we scrambled it up. I figured out what I wanted to feel instead and the things that I could appreciate from that experience. And then you see, I drew my little basketball hoop here. If you didn't, maybe you couldn't tell that's what it was, but that's my best version. You'll have to go with me on it. And so I drew my little basketball hoop here. And what we have to do is we have to say, okay, now we scrambled that up. This is what I love. Now we have to rehearse. We have to rehearse. You see, let's see if I don't mess this up completely, right? I'm going to draw a big circle, right? This over here, it seems as though that little piece, that section where we got in the car and we heard something and it ran the program, that little section, it was out of our control. And we got to make it in our control. Then the program that ran this little piece right here, that seemingly was out of our control. But we've got to find control, right? So what we've got to do is in order to gain control, we're going to take this little section here, we're scramble things up and, mix the mind up and get it to actually be conscious again, instead of in our subconscious, in our body. And we don't want to give our body the control or the outside world control to be able to do this on its own, right? And so then we want to move into what do we want instead? And this little piece is huge. This is super hard. As I work with my clients and I work with people, I find that they can't tell me what they want. What do you want instead? What do you want instead to feel? And then this is the kicker. This is the absolute kicker. You have to practice. You have to rehearse. The number of free throws a pro basketball player takes in a day or a week so that they can prepare for their games is astronomical. But they're good at it. You have to rehearse. If you look at my dancers, they rehearse. We have to get the technical skill. We have to learn what to do. And then we have to actually break their old habits, insert the new stuff that we want, and then rehearse the crap out of it. You can't skip any of those pieces. So I want you to think about this. I want you to take some action because you've got to take some action. It's 2020 and it's time to get clear. I know I keep saying that, right? But we've got to take advantage of whatever little mnemonic or cool little thing. And you know what? If we look at the date every day, it says 2020. It reminds us, see clearer, get clearer. And now do this thing. So let's take some action. I'd like you to find or identify this week or in the next few days a situation that comes up that you feel like you're out of control on, where maybe your body runs that software program that you installed and you don't know where it came from or why it did, and try to identify what the program is. Where did it come from? Did it come from the sound? Did it come from something you saw, some memory you had? And then let's scramble that baby up and let's figure out what we want and then rehearse what we want. Now, I know there's a lot more to it, but this is the simplicity of it. So let's take that simplicity and do something with it. Now, I know I got a little technical today and into some of the guts of it, but I wanted to do something really, really impactful. And I want you to be able to take this and use it and do something with it. So right now, I want you to think of it and start to identify some pattern, something you do on a regular basis that maybe you feel out of control of with your emotions, with your body, and that program that's running. And then write it down. And if you can't figure out how to scramble it up, for goodness sake, send me an email, info@magicforlife.com. Let us help you. That's what we're doing. We're out here to change lives. We're out here to change the world. And I know that sounds epic. You know, I had somebody on one of my Facebook posts the other day just absolutely slam me. And I just laugh and giggle because he's the one that needs it. He's the one that needs it. He's running that program. He's so angry and he's running this angry program and he's not in control. His body's running it. His mind is just being the servant to his body. Guys, we got to stop that. We got to break the pattern. Got to scramble it up and do something better. So, you know, let's get it done. 2020, let's take some action. Thanks for being here. We'll see you on the next podcast. Don't forget to share this with some of your friends that need to hear this today. This one's going to change their life. We'll see you on the next podcast. Take care. Bye-bye.
Want more Magic for Life? If so, then reserve your copy of my new book. Get your copy at everyminutebook.com. Inside this book, you'll find the secrets to attaining the next level of performance in anything you do. Learn the secrets behind emotional mastery that'll start you on your new journey of being a lifer. Whether you're an athlete, a business professional, or an artist, this book will change your life forever. Get your copy reserved today.